there are just 18 points separating the top 5 places in the points championship of the ADAC GT Masters. It really couldn't be closer. Hello everybody, welcome to the Sachsenring. We are in Germany, just outside Chemnitz in Saxony, and we are getting ready for race 9 of this 14 race season for the ADAC GT Masters. That man there, Mathieu Jaminet, starts on pole position. Now he and teammate Mikhail Muller came into the Sachsenring. That was the previous round as points championship leaders, and they exited 5th place in the championship standings, some 18 points off the lead. They are looking to undo the damage and get back on the championship chase. The best way of doing that was putting it on pole position. There is another winner, and that was from the last race at the Sachsenring, Igor Valilko, who shares driving duties with Jules Gounon, and he has qualified on the outside front row. Third on the grid, Lucas Stoltz, a very strong showing in qualifying. And fourth on the grid, it's Mirko Bortolotti in the GRT Grasser Lamborghini. This is a good opportunity for me to introduce the man who's sitting alongside me for this weekend. It's Adam Weller. Are you enjoying your trip to Sachsenring this weekend, Adam?
Yes, very much am, although we must say the GRT Grasser team had their work cut out for them, didn't they? The 63 car in particular, they didn't get any running on Friday. However, of all the teams in the world to have issues with a Huracan, probably the best one, since they were the first team in the world to field a Huracan GT3 car. So even without that data from Friday's running, they know how to set the thing up, and sure enough, they're 4th on the grid with the 63.
That's a good stat and very impressive from GRT Grasser, despite a lack of running. And Albert Costa Balboa described Friday as the worst day of his racing career, having not turned a wheel at all in free practice due to mechanical issues. But as you say, Adam, putting it 4th on the grid, that is no mean feat. You wonder what he might have done had he run on Friday. You saw Riccardo Feller briefly on your screen there. He, along with Christopher Mies, head the championship standings. They are just 3 points ahead of that man there, Raffaele Marciello, the man who has a penchant for colouring his hair green, is starting just alongside behind, in fact, alongside Riccardo Feller on the grid. Raffaele Marciello along with teammate Maxi Buch, who are taking over the driving duties of the Manfilter Team Landgraf and Mercedes. So a strong qualifying performance from them. They are just 3 points behind Feller and Mies in the championship standings. There's Klaus Bakler. Good qualifying for him. After what's been a fairly difficult season, he starts 8th on the grid. So we are less than 5 minutes away from the start of this race. We are at the Sachsenring, a circuit that is about 3.671 kilometers around. That equates to 2.281 miles. The track has 14 turns, 4 to the right and 10 to the left, and it is characterized by lots of undulation, none more so than out of turn 11, the steep drop, a 12.8% drop down a piece of track that is nicknamed the Waterfall as they head towards turn 12. It's a circuit that is windy in some sections and creates great overtaking opportunities in other sections, particularly turns 13 and 14 and into turn 1. Plenty of opportunities to overtake, but plenty of opportunities to have a large one as well. A couple of blind crests on the circuit as well, up towards turn 11 and up towards turn 7. So an exciting circuit, a Marmite circuit. Some drivers love it, some absolutely hate it. We run in an anti-clockwise direction, which plays all sorts of tricks on the drivers' necks, but it is a super circuit and conditions are perfect. 20.4 degrees centigrade. The skies are blue. We are not anticipating any rain over the weekend. How often do you hear that on an ADAC weekend? Well, not very often this year. We seem to have had rain at every corner. You see the number 71 car of Max Paul And Max Paul was sharing driving duties with Hugo Sasser, but Hugo Sasser has jumped across and is now in a GRT Grasser Lamborghini, the number 82 car, alongside Tim Zimmerman. And filling Hugo Sasser's shoes is Marco Mappelli. He's an old favourite that comes out occasionally, a real rapid racer, and he is in the number 71 T3 HRT Motorsport Lamborghini alongside Max Paul. We mentioned Hugo Sasser because he is fresh from winning a race in the GT4 category this afternoon, so he is a man on a mission and settling into GRT Grasser very well indeed. As you can see, the cars are lined up against the wall, and very shortly those engines are going to burst into life, and we will start the formation lap, which will get this race running. It's the first of 2 races this weekend, race 9. Here we go, 1 minute before we get going, and Kevin Kuska holding up the board saying, drivers, start your engines. The ground shakes as 26 GT3 cars burst into life. And there is our pole sitter, Mathieu Jaminet, who will be handing over to Mikhail Muller at some point during this race. The anticipation, the atmosphere, it's electric here, isn't it, Adam?
Absolutely, yeah. You could see the buzz just walking away from the commentary box for a few minutes before this race. You could see the buzz on the spectator banks as these GT3 cars started to line up in this formation. A few of the engines sounding as the cars came from the installation lap. Joy on faces. These cars are loud, they're in your face, and they're spectacular machines, and I think we're in for a great race.
And another great sight is the sight you just saw, spectators. Yes, it's so good to welcome spectators back in great numbers here to the Sachsenring. Really good after a difficult couple of years. You can see the crowd here to witness this weekend, and a real hope that maybe we're getting back to some level of normality in life. And really good to welcome them here this weekend. And a great entertainment so far, and a lot more still to come. Our grid, Mathieu Jaminet and Igor Velilko, the winner from last time out at the Sachsenring, alongside him. On row 2, Lucas Stoltz and Mirko Bortolotti. Row 3, championship leader Riccardo Feller with Raffaele Marciello alongside. Then it's Charles Witt, a better qualifying for him, alongside Klaus Bakler, Christian Engelhardt and Max Paul. Good qualifying on row 5 ahead of Maximilian Hacklander and Dylan Pereira. And then Kim Louis Schramm and Nick Yellowly alongside him. Florian Spengler and Janus Fincher line up on row 8. Then it's Daniel Karvitz and Mike David Orman, another driver doing GT4 this weekend. Jeffrey Schmidt a long way back alongside Lucasandro Treves, and then Hugo Sasser and Rolfin Eichen. Robert Renauer and Yusuf Oega occupy row 12. Row 13, Konstantin Skoll and Ilya Earhart. And then bringing up the rear of the grid, it's Simon Riker in the Yako Racing Team Audi. You can see cars on their formation laps just getting heat into the tyres, into the brakes. Here at the Sachsenring, the instruction has been given to grid up, and very, very shortly we will be getting ready to go racing. All the championship contenders are at the front end of the grid, and it really is incredibly close. Just to remind you that Raffaele Marciello, who lines up on the 3rd row of the grid, is just 3 points off the championship lead. And the guys that start on pole position in the number 92 car, that's Mathieu Jaminet, and then that man there, Mikhail Muller, who will be taking over, who are currently were the championship leaders, down in 5th, but could easily end this weekend back at the top again. That Porsche is very, very rapid. So, safety car leads the cars up towards turn 14. It ducks off into the pits. We are getting ready for the lights to go out, and very, very shortly we will be ready to go racing. Mathieu Jaminet just a little bit ahead as they cross the line, and away we go. There's debris scattering across the track. I don't know where that was from, but it's Jaminet who got a great start, a really good start in fact, and leads the field into turn 1. It is incredibly tight. Can we get all the cars around the first few corners? It doesn't happen very often, but we certainly made it around turn 1, and it looks like the number 69 car, that's where the debris came from. That's Florian Spengler at the wheel of that car, and it looks like he's in all sorts of trouble. So the 69 car dropping further back. You can see plumes of smoke, the bodywork fouling the tyre, and I dare say the stewards will have something to say about that. So after a really strong qualifying performance, it's still shedding all sorts of debris, and we've got a formation lap 2 on the screen. There's nothing on our timing screens to indicate that, so the safety car is back out, so clearly the race steward was not happy with the start of that race. That's something we don't see very often, is it?
No, it's very bizarre indeed. Obviously, if we had green flag running at the time of the debris going down, that was too late. The race would have already started, so it must have been decided before anything happened there with the 69 car of Florian Spengler. But yes, a second formation lap. That means we will be back to, or we will be having another go at it in just a few moments, because as you can see, they're already getting up into 2x2 formation.
I did wonder whether it was because Jaminet was too far ahead, because when I was looking at the commentary box window as well, and he was well ahead of Igor Velilko as they crossed the line, and I'm wondering if that might have been a factor as well. The full story will come out eventually, I have no doubt, but as things stand at the moment, we get 2 starts, so that's pretty good for the spectators here, because the crowd absolutely shakes when this lot cross the line as one. Once again, Jaminet just a little bit in front, but Igor Velilko needs to pull up alongside. That's exactly what he does. They cross the line pretty well, neck in neck. We're waiting for the lights to go out. Away we go. Once again, it's Mathieu Jaminet who leads the field. Cross the line in towards turn 1. So for the second time of asking, can we all get around turn 1? There's a challenge on the inside of the number 22 car, and that looks like Ricardo Feller. So Feller's made a great start. The rest of the field comes through. There's a bit of debris, but it looks like everybody has survived. Lucas Stoltz was getting a little bit buzzed about, and that's that the Aust Motorsport Audi, certainly one of the Audis, having a problem going around the Castro Omega turn. So it's all about survival on this first lap. It really is, particularly on an undulating, windy track like this. And that is the car that had the problem. I'm pretty sure that's Daniel Kylevitz. We'll get some kind of confirmation. Yes, it is. So it's Daniel Kylevitz, who you can see the rear wheel on that car is pointing in completely the wrong direction. So he has not made it past lap 1. The safety car is out once again. So we thought there might be a few safety cars here. The clock is still ticking, and we've also lost Janis Fitcher in the number 91 Team Youth Sport Wagentechnik Porsche. That is a real shame. They are a team who have been going forwards all season long.
Yes, we saw that car up on the curbs at turns 3 and 4. Looked like it was struggling to turn, and well, there's some confirmation of that, isn't it? Left front tyre down and didn't even make it around the turn 4 as it turned out. Safety car absolutely necessary in those circumstances, of course, with the car stranded on circuit, but a big shame to lose that car so early on.
So that means that David Yarn is not going to get a drive this afternoon. That's a real shame. They are a combination who have really impressed this year in the GT Masters. There's another one is the pits. That is the 19 of Rolf van Eycken. So it looks like Franck Pereira is not going to get a drive either. So we've lost a few cars before this race has even started. We've lost Janis Fitcher, Daniel Kylevitz, Rolf van Eycken, and clearly Janis Fitcher believes that somebody is to blame, and he's saying car 3. So clearly the Daniel Kylevitz, Janis Fitcher incidents were connected, and Fitcher, well, you can see from his body language, he's not too chuffed about things, is he?
No, absolutely. He was gesticulating wildly at somebody who was still running. This is the first attempt at the start that got called off. And as we can see, it became clear quite quickly that everyone was trying to slow down. I think that was part of the issue, that some people said, oh, OK, we're not starting the race. And others thought we were indeed racing. And it took a while for that message to funnel through, didn't it?
Yeah, and I don't know whether all the drivers could see the lights when we went or not, but one of the real casualties after such a strong qualifying session was Florian Spengler, and he was shedding all sorts of debris right, left and centre. And then we had the second formation lap, and we did it all again. So still Janis Fichter and getting back in the car, and they're going to tow that one to safety. After that start, it's Mathieu Jaminet, who is the leader of the race, Lucas Stoltz in second, and Riccardo Feller. Great start from 5th on the grid up into 3rd. Mirko Bortolotti holding on to 4th, and Raffaele Marciello, who was in 5th place. Igor Valilko, the big loser in all of that, down to P6. Charles Wirt, who has had nothing but bad luck for the last couple of races, is running in 7th place. And then it's Christian Engelhardt and Klaus Bakler. We're looking at the number 91 team Use Sportwagen Technique, a Porsche, being dragged to safety, and you can see bits of the car falling apart as we go there, and he comes to join the very same car that he got together with. And I dare say, judging by the body language, there may be some discussions to be had somewhere off the track.
Yes, quite possibly. I do think that's a matter yet to be resolved. I'm sure it may result in a bit of a visit to race control later on, and some dishings out of tellings off, but hopefully nothing too severe. But a big shame to lose cars this early in the race. We talked about it before we even went on air, Brian. There's going to be a safety car at some point in this one, isn't there? And it came very quickly, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Sachsenring, it's a great track, but it does often court controversy, and you do get a lot of incidents like that. This series is so close and so competitive. It's arguably the toughest GT series in the world, and putting them around the Sachsenring is always going to cause some issues. You can see a bit of a sandwich there. Was that the 91 car that was caught in the sandwich? It looked like it to me. And maybe that was what set off this incident. As looking back from Charles Wirt.
That would tie up with a theory I had. I thought it was the 33 car of Schramm that he was gesticulating to as he got out of the car earlier.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that was the car involved in the sandwich. So I think I know where the blame is being attributed, at least from the party of the 91 crew.
Reading body language is what we do. A few more replays of that start, and yeah, you can see the damage to the 91 car, and of course all the other cars behind getting involved, and there we've lost the number 3, Daniel Karlvitz, the former champion in the ADAC GT Masters. So the safety car is out still at the moment. We'd expect it in, and that is indeed the confirmation we have. So the safety car is in on this lap. So very shortly the lights will go out on that safety car, and control of the race will be handed over to Mathieu Jaminet. It will be his decision when to hit the accelerator, when to go. His plan will be to catch Lucas Stoltz napping and try and open up a gap nice and early on. The one good thing about the safety car is it's got the cars in a single file, so hopefully we'll see a few less incidents. That could be famous last words. You can see Jaminet now is backing the pack up. The safety car disappears off into the distance, and it will be his decision when he wants to hit the accelerator, and he really is slowing the field down. And here we come up towards turn 14. He nails it, and up around the corner they come. A textbook start from Mathieu Jaminet. He's done a few of those in his career, and he leads the cars across the line with Lucas Stoltz is second. Mirko Bortolotti lining up Riccardo Feller as they cross the line.
Into the first corner, and they're fanning out, and you can see there Feller trying to get to the inside of Bortolotti, did so, had the nose ahead into third place, or is he? Because it's still side-by-side running. We've got a bulletin there saying car 13 under investigation for inaccurate grid position. That, of course, is Valilko, and, well, usually it's pretty cut and dry when it comes to those investigations. It's still side-by-side for third place. The 63 car just about holding on to it. Mirko Bortolotti doing a brilliant job there. Fort Ricardo fella for upwards of 30 seconds. They were side-by-side.
So Albert Costa Balboa will be taking over from Mirko Bortolotti. He has an axe to grind, having received a penalty last year in this race, which saw a certain win taken away from him. So expect that number 63 car to be moving forwards. It's very strong here around the Sachsenring anyway. But Matteo Jaminet has that Porsche dialed in, already opening up a gap over Lucas Stoltz in second. And more challenges further back. That's Max Paul in the number 71 car, and he's having a great race. So Max Paul and Nick Yellerly, we're looking at Yellerly back in 11th place. Didn't have the best of qualifying sessions this morning, and Nick Yellerly making his move. So having said how well Max Paul is doing, now Yellerly is on his outside, sweeping past, and it's pure grunt that gets him past into turn one.
I'm not convinced that Max Paul didn't lift out of the throttle a little bit there to try and avoid the side-by-side. It was as if the car just kind of stopped somewhere around 140 miles an hour, and Lamborghinis don't tend to do that. So yes, I think there might have been a little bit of okay, fine. Nick Yellerly, of course, who was a big part of BMW's successes in 2020, is part of the N24 winning crew, and his teammate Jesse Krohn was part of the Daytona 24-hour winning crew. But I'm not convinced that Max Paul's car is quite healthy, is it? Because it doesn't quite look as though it's running at full pace. He's losing positions hand over fist, and two on that lap alone.
You saw from your graphic up there, a penalty lap has been awarded to Igor Valilko in the Zakspeed Mercedes. New for this year is the penalty lap. It's not the drive-through penalty. It's something in the arsenal of the race steward that allows him to award a penalty without it utterly trashing a driver's afternoon, and it means that he will have to drive through the penalty box, which is a small area of track on the exit of turn 2, and he'll have to drive through that at 60 kilometers an hour.
Want to watch the 71 car down this straight, because I'm thinking that car might be stuck in gear. The way it suddenly stopped accelerating halfway down the straight, I'm going to watch and see if it does it again this time. The answer is no, so it isn't a gearbox issue, not a severe gearbox issue for Max Paul, but certainly his pace just isn't there. There you see the penalty lap we're talking about on the outside of turn 2. Quite tricky how that's situated, actually, because obviously that will be straight off the apex of turn 1 and then into turn 2, and if you're slowing for that, you could end up with a bit of a tap from behind.
So the idea of the penalty box is that it penalises the driver without a full-on drive-through penalty, so they have to pass through that box at 60 kilometers an hour. It's a 200-meter box, and it's off the racing line. In theory, on this circuit, it's not easy to get off the racing line, and that will certainly harm Igor Valilko, but it won't put him to the absolute back of the pack. So we'll continue to look at other challenges throughout this race. There's the number 14 car coming through there, and we continue through the race 9 of this 14 race season for the ADAC GT Masters. It's Matteo Jaminet who leads the way by 1.26 seconds. Raffaele Marciello down in P5 has got purple in sector 1. He wants to move forward, so that means he's the quickest of anybody in sector 1. So keep an eye on the number 70 car. Not a great start by his standards. He is looking to make a charge forwards. There's another car charging forwards. That is Jeffrey Schmidt in the number 77 Callaway Competition Corvette, a car that had to be completely rebuilt after that big fire at the Sachsenring last time out. Jeffrey Schmidt won race 2 here at Sachsenring last year. Would dearly love to do the same again, but he's currently Nordstrom down in 15th place, so he's going to have to do a lot of work from there.
Yeah, Absolutely, that C7 Corvette, the Callaway machine, they've honed and tuned that car over a great many years, and could be something at the end of an era, really, for projects of that nature, because since, I think, 2018, there's been a mandatory cap of 10 cars built per year, and, well, Callaway only ever built 5 of these C7 GT3Rs to memory, so they are going to have to either find a lot of budget, or unfortunately, this is kind of the last of a breed of independent GT3 cars, but it's one of the most spectacular cars on the grid. It's got incredible aero, and it makes an amazing sound.
And it makes the ground shake when it comes past. You see a graphic on your screen there, and that is indicating an initiative between the CSR and BWT for each completed race lap, and that is for all GT Masters vehicles. BWT and the ADAC jointly donate €4 as we see Velilko going through the penalty box. For every lap completed, the ADAC and BWT jointly donate €4 to the Be Water mission, and the Be Water mission, which builds wells in primarily rural areas in the Gambia and in Tanzania to ensure access to clean and drinking water. Really, really important and really, really valuable here in the ADAC GT Masters.
Some great initiatives around the paddock, really. BWT also have the paddock as a bottle-free zone, I noticed as well, which is another great, innovation, I suppose. There aren't many bottle-free paddocks that you'll find around the world. There you see the top 5 or so going through the waterfall, and way further down than he had been previously, of course, is Velilko, just to the fringes of the top 10 now, as we look back to some side-by-side action.
So, lots of action all the way through the field, and that looks like Max Paul mixing it still in the pack, and that great qualifying session that he had, certainly counting for very little. Here come the leaders, though. Mathieu Jaminet, a 1.853 second gap over Lucas Stoltz. So the SSR Performance Porsche, the defending champions in ADAC GT Masters, very much leading the way, looking to become the first ever team to successfully defend a GT Masters title. We ride on board with fifth place, Raffaele Marciello, and ahead of him is Ricardo Falla. Behind him, Charles Witt. Marciello kind of running very much on his own, and it's at this point we remind you that every car will be required to come in at some point during this race for a mandatory pit stop and driver change. There will be a window that opens, and that window will open in exactly 7 minutes. It will remain open for 10 minutes, and during that period every car will need to visit the pits. And a lot of the strategy in GT Masters racing will be when to bring the car into the pits. If a car is running on its own out on the track, maybe it'll be better to leave it out later in the window. If it's running in traffic, maybe come in early and get the undercut. I believe that's Nick Yellowly we're looking at there, weaving at the wheel. The Aston Martin Formula 1 team development driver doing a great job here in the GT Masters. If the race finished now, you'd see that Jaminet and Muller would jump from 4th to 2nd in the points championship. Did I say 4th? I meant 5th, and would be just 3 off the lead. Buch and Marciello would be just 5 off the lead. This is such a close championship, and look at that. If the race finished now, Bortolotti and Costa Balboa and Marciello and Buch would all be on top of it.
All within 10 points of each other, which
yes,
would make things incredible coming into not just the second race of this weekend, but of course our remaining round of the ADAC GT Masters season. It's been a grand year so far. The form book has seesawed numerous times, and it feels like each weekend it really don't have any idea what's going on until first qualifying and we get to see the lay of the land. The field is so close that if someone has found a 1/10 of a second, sometimes that's 3 or 4 places up the grid.
Absolutely. I mean, it is incredibly close. The top of the grid, the first half of the grid, separated by 1 second, and it really is incredibly close. We've only had 2 teams that have won twice this year. That's the Monteplas by Land Audi with Christopher Mies and Ricardo Falla, and the SSR Performance Porsche that leads this race at the moment. The only cars and drivers to have won 2 races. Such is the competitive competitive nature of GT Masters. I think Jaminet and co-driver Mikhail Muller will be looking to bump that up to 3 if they can possibly manage it this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, they're certainly looking strong here, aren't they? Some defensive driving going on further back as well. That's the 69. So that's Florian Spengler defending from Robert Renauer, who's trying to go all the way around the outside. We've seen it done a few times here at the Sachsenring in the past. Not on that occasion, though. Renauer couldn't quite hold on. Pit stop window being displayed as between 16:56 and 17:06. So that's, I think, being shown in particular because we reduced the race down to 57 minutes. So I think they're just clarifying that for us because obviously we had those 2 formation laps which slightly threw things into a disarray.
They did indeed, yes. So as is often the way at GT Masters, if we have an early on stoppage, to move the pit stop window is often the case. So it is currently, I'm trying to see what time it is locally, it's 16:49, so 16:56 will be in 7 minutes. Can't get me with all the maths. So in 7 minutes, the pit window will open, and at that point, there will be a 10-minute window that the drivers need to come in for that mandatory stop and driver change. You mentioned the number 69 car of Florian Spengler, who is in the battle there. Of course, he was one of the cars that was the casualty on the first stop, so on the first stoppage of the race. So really good to see him there circulating in 18th place. We also have a junior championship running as part of this, apart from the main race and championship. And the leading junior driver is Ricardo Feller, who is currently running 4th on the track ahead of Charles Witt, who is running 6th on the track. So we look back from Robert Renauer at the number 11 car, and it's Ilya Earhart at the wheel of that. He's sharing driving duties this weekend with Matthias Drudy. Matthias Drudy, who's taken over from Pierre Caffer. Pierre Caffer did the first 3 rounds of the year, and Matthias Drudy is running in that today as a one-off only thing. We've seen Matthias Drudy before in the ADAC GT Masters, and a very useful pilot he is too, and he will be taking over the Rutronic Racing by Teca car as this race progresses.
Yes, of course, that is a long-established partnership with Earhart, and but I don't think he'd ever want to fully replace his teammate. It's a very good relationship that he has with his co-driver, but obviously schedule clashes even more of a problem in 2021 given all of the calendars moving around, and so unfortunately we are missing a couple of faces from the paddock from round to round. But Earhart, as you said, Matthias Drudy, not a bad replacement for Pierre Caffer.
So that's Robert Renauer on the outside of the number 69 car. So Robert Renauer and Spengler going side by side, and Renauer goes sweeping past with relative ease. Just going to also draw your attention to 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Yusuf Owega, Hugo Sassa, who's just moved up to 22nd, and Lucas Sandro Treves, all drivers that were running in the ADAC GT4 last year and have stepped up to GT3 this year and are real chargers that are coming up through the ranks. Although Hugo Sassa, as we mentioned earlier, along with Mike David Ortman, winning the GT4 race earlier this afternoon.
It's a great pack of cars that we have here then, fighting for 18th down, as it were. Florian Spengler and Robert Renauer there, and just mentioning names like that and following it with 18th and 19th place again just shows you the depth of quality in this field. And certainly it's a great drive from Spengler here to hold off Renauer, who has been trying every which way around the Audi R8, but not quite able to get the Herbert Motorsport Porsche around it just yet. You do get the feeling that Renauer has a bit more pace if he could only get past, but of course he also risks, if he tries too hard to make the move, he also risks losing further positions. That's the ever evolving issue of racing in a big pack like this.
Yes, it's so easy to get railroaded and suddenly lose a whole hatful of places. Drivers that are making good progress. Nick Yellerly up in P9 at the moment. He qualified for him a relatively lowly 14th place on the grid. He had such high expectations coming into this season, has had a lot of bad luck, it has to be said, along with several podiums, and looking to fight back from a difficult qualifying session. But in P9, that is definitely worth mentioning in dispatches. Ahead of him is Klaus Bakler, the number 7 Perico Herberth Motorsport Porsche. He's sharing that with Simone Di Silvestro, another driver who had high expectations coming into this year, but they have not been fulfilled. You were riding on board briefly there with the other of the Precoat Herberth Motorsport Porsches, that's easy to say, with Robert Renauer at the wheel, the 2018 champion, who is sharing driving duties with Sven Muller. So Lucas Andre Treves ahead of him, his long-time sparring partner Hugo Sassa in the 82 car, and Yusuf Awega. And Awega is looking to the left and to the right of the very experienced Ilya Earhart, who is in the trophy category, and trying to track down Florian Spengler, who leads that championship battle. Here comes Sassa on the inside. So Sassa making a good charge forwards, a little bit of a rub as he goes past Awega, and Lucas Andre Treves says, I'll be having some of that, and follows through on his coattails.
Absolutely. There's only so much turning in one can do when there's a Lamborghini Huracan beside you, as we saw there. And Sassa really forced the issue, said, nope, sorry, I'm taking that position. Not so convinced he'd have made the corner as cleanly had there not been a car to stop him. But he's made the move stick. And as you said, some opportunistic driving from Treves behind to move up a place as well.
So, yeah, Lucas Andre Treves not going to miss an opportunity. Of course, his co-pilot is the first ever GT Masters champion, Christopher Haase. So he has quite a wise teacher in this. You just saw the leader going through. Mathieu Jaminet, 2.272 ahead of Lucas Stoltz. And Zach Speed Mercedes coming through with the hazards flashing, Ilgor Valilko, who has had the hazards flashing for most of the race, from by my reckoning. So, yes, not entirely sure why that is, but he is currently in 10th place.
I can tell you, he put them on when he went through the penalty lap and has forgot to take them back off.
It sounds like me on a trip down to Tesco's. Here we see Robert Renauer on the outside of Florian Spengler, and Spengler fighting back. Robert Renauer, two great drivers, but it's Renauer who wrestles that position away. So Robert Renauer is up into 18th place.
Spengler just a fraction too late on the brakes. Renauer had the car stopped, realised what was happening, and just dived to the inside, took the position. Great move from Robert Renauer to move up to 18th place. Now, I was hypothesising earlier on that once he did get past, he would drive away, and so now I'm hoping that he follows through on my hunch, otherwise I'll look a bit silly.
Well, I think your hypothesis has proven to be entirely accurate, as we can see from our screen. Also, you can see from your screen that the pit window is now open, so there is now a 10-minute window in which all cars must come into the pits for a mandatory stop and driver change, as we look again at Renauer wrestling his way past the Spengler car. So this pit stop, the drivers will need to meet a minimum pit stop time. Every race we see somebody fall by the wayside. It is 70 seconds from pit entrance to pit exit, as already the 33 car of Kim Louis Schramm comes in to hand over to Dennis Marshall. There is a 70-second minimum time, so if the driver goes below that 70 seconds, they will pick up a penalty, and the stewards are red hot on that. You can see the little countdown clock on the right-hand side of the graphic. That shows you the clock ticking down as somebody goes straight on, and that is 63. So that is Mirko Bortolotti, and it looks like he's got problems.
That car had fire out of the exhaust as it was slowing down, and Mirko Bortolotti then pulled off the circuit. I dare suggest that might be maybe a re-emergence of some of the mechanical issues they were struggling with yesterday. And look, there you can see it's been slowing for quite some time.
So yes, he had dropped down. The timing screens were showing his 7th, and look at the flames pouring out of the back of that Lamborghini. Well spotted there. Now, if that car is in a place that needs to be removed, and it looks to me like it is, they probably won't throw a safety car, but instead a full course yellow. When the pit window is open, the stewards, wherever possible, will not bring a safety car out, because that really messes with the field, and instead a full course yellow. as things stand at the moment, nothing has been indicated. You can see it's quite the traffic jam in the pits. You can see from your graphic that our lead trio, in fact, or the lead 4, 5, 6 are all staying out, but further back the cars are in. Yellow leads in, handing over to Jesse Kroon. You just saw that as a switch over. Charles Witt handing over to Dries Vanthoor, and there is Jeffrey Schmidt climbing out of the Callaway Competition Corvette, handing over to Marvin Kirchhofer. Marvin Kirchhofer, who is celebrating his 20th anniversary in motorsport this weekend. We'd dearly love to celebrate it with something more than a P16 finish. So we say congratulations to Marvin Kirchhofer on his 20th anniversary. And there is the driver into the pits. That's Albert Costa Balboa. So Albert Costa Balboa will be very frustrated by the fact that he is almost certainly not going to get a drive this afternoon. Actually looking a little bit emotional about it, if you ask me.
He absolutely does. I mean, you described it earlier, didn't you? You said about the worst weekend he'd ever had. And unfortunately, this one at Lausitz doesn't look like it's matching up much better at this stage. So unfortunate for that entire crew. The GRT Grasser team have worked so hard to try and get this car together. It looks so good in qualifying, but in the race, it has fallen short.
So that car was, and those drivers were just 9 points behind the championship leaders coming into this event. That gap is almost certainly going to increase massively. You can see Albert Costa Balboa is devastated because after this event, with only 5 races remaining, it is going to be hard to close a major points gap. So the GRT Grasser Lamborghini is parked up at the side of the track. The yellows are waving, so we haven't gone full course yellow. They're trying to keep this race running where possible. What we might see is a safety car after the pit window closes, of course. That is not beyond the realms of possibility. Significant car into the pits is the 22 car, Lucas Stoltz, handing over to Mauro Engel, which is why you've seen him drop down the order. Pleased to see we haven't seen any red P's on the graphic yet. That would indicate that they've gone below the 0, and that'll be a first for this year because we always seem to get somebody who goes below the minimum pit stop time. Right, into the pit lane comes our championship leader, Ricardo Feller, getting ready to hand over to Christopher Mies. Also, Marciello's in. He's going to give way to Maxi Bouk. Jaminet is still out on track, so Mathieu Jaminet going quite a long way into the window.
Yes, Christopher Mies getting behind the wheel then. I was hoping to see Christopher Mies in his rather fetching, in fact he might be wearing it after all, his rather fetching Japanese style helmet that he was wearing earlier on in the season at an event I was attending. That is because he was meant to race in the Japanese Super GT Championship, but all the restrictions prevented him from doing so. Chris Mies has raced pretty much all over the world in Audi R8 GT3 cars. He's a specialist at Bathurst, having won that 12-hour race over there a good many times. He also has the lap record out there in GT3 cars as well. Chris Mies, I don't think you can really ask for a more decorated Audi GT3 driver.
And of course he is the 2016 GT Masters champion as well. He really wants to do it this year. His team want him to do it because he has said that he will take his entire team to Mallorca on holiday if they win the championship this year. So there's an incentive. So Mallorca, here we come, because he is very keen to retain that championship lead. It's going to be tough because Mathieu Jaminet and Mikhail Muller really are very much on a roll, and it's Jaminet who continues to lead this race. He's still yet to make his pit stop. Franck Pereira is in now, and he is was running in 4th place. So we've just got 3 cars that I say Franck Pereira, beg your pardon, Dylan Pereira. Get me Pereira's mixed up in the number 74 car. So we've just got 3 cars that haven't pitted: Jaminet, Engelhardt and Bakler. Jaminet, our race leader, as Ricardo Feller done all that hard work, hands it over to Christopher Mies and says, okay, your go, chap. Bring this one home, extend our championship lead. So down the waterfall we come. You can see the car's fairly well spaced out. There's Mauro Engel in the number 22 Team TopSport WRT Mercedes, currently showing in 6th place. Of course, everything's a little bit muddled up until the pit stops are done and dusted and they all cross the timing line. Then we find out where things really are. There's Dries Vanthoor, who's taken over from Charles Viet. Vanthoor, very much the man of the moment in GT racing as our leader comes into the pits. Is Mathieu Jaminet keeping to the pit limit. The clock has started at the side of the graphic. So in he comes, heavily restricted. There mustn't be more than 2 mechanics working on the car. Car comes to a stop, the engine has to be switched off. Muller is out, he helps Jaminet out of the seat. Very much a team effort all the way. Muller jumps in, now Jaminet will help to get him plugged in and buckled up. And it's all got to be done at one sitting. We've already seen drivers pick up penalties when a driver has had to revisit the car after the door is closed. So getting the driver's net put in, real team effort. We're going to keep an eye on Mauro Engel because he is effectively going to be second place, or could it be the lead, depending on where Mikhail Muller comes out of the pits. This is the difficult part. They're sat there with the engine off, just watching the clock tick down because they mustn't leave the pits before the clock strikes 0. And you can see the 22 car is still quite a long way back, so I would suggest that Mikhail Muller is going to have a fairly healthy lead when this is all done and dusted. Here he comes out of the pits towards turn 1. There is Mauro Engel in the background. Mikhail Muller hits the accelerator, and when the pit stops are all done and dusted, he will resume his position in the lead of this race.
But still very close between the two of them, all things considered. And by the time that Porsche has its tyres up to temp and everything hooked back up for Muller, I think we are going to see an interesting battle at the head of the order. Certainly we're seeing an interesting battle here with the number 70 car, Maximilian Buch, being followed by Preining and Dries Vanthoor. So 3 very high caliber GT drivers, to say the very least of their abilities. And this would be a very interesting fight. 3 class drivers, 3 different cars, of course, as well, and quite the battleground in the form of the Sachsenring.
It's exciting, isn't it? There's currently 3 Porsches being listed as the leaders, but of course we still have Bakler to complete his pit stop. It looks like it's going to be Muller who leads the way once the pit stop window closes from Engel and Mies. Of course, we may yet get a safety car because the GRT Grasser Lamborghini is still stranded out on track.
No, sorry, I was just going to come in with that. They waved the green flag there 2 or 3 minutes ago. They managed to get the car moved, so that's okay.
Well observed. I'm pleased that there's another set of eyes on this because I haven't got a clue. Here we go ahead at turn 14. The view from Dries Vanthoor, and in front of him comes the Thomas Preining car. So Dries Vanthoor getting beaten to the line by Thomas Preining. So from my reckoning, all pit stops have now been done and dusted, and we are into the last 22 minutes plus 1 lap of this race. And as you see them on the track is how they are. Our timing screen is showing Simone Di Silvestro in the lead, but that's on account of the fact that she's taken over from Klaus Bakler. I'm sorry to say that Simona will be quite a lot further back down the grid as we see the Zakspeed Mercedes getting a little bit sideways in the hand of Jules Gounon. And Gounon in 9th place. Clearly, tyre wear being an issue here, as we always thought it would be.
Yes, a Krone, who we just see there on circuit in the 10 car, the Schubert BMW, as we see a bit of a sideways moment there. Goodness me, Jules Gounon. Yes, you are pushing hard, aren't you? You could tell there that he was right on the limit of adhesion. I think just getting some lift-off oversteer and some understeer potentially for the other car, the number 20 Zakspeed machine, which had a bit of an off coming out of turn 10. That's still at the wheel of that car at the moment, as we see there Simone Di Silvestro, who has come back out on the circuit in 7th place, rather apt given it is the number 7 car. And I was just going to say that Jesse Krohn, of course, behind, will be hoping to try and close in on Simona before the end of the stint. We'll see whether he can do that in the sole BMW M6 GT3.
So Simona Di Silvestro, who took over from Klaus Bakler, who'd done a great job in qualifying and in the race up to P7. Would be really good to see Simona finishing in the points. She did, of course, race in the Indy 500 this year, so really good to see her representing over there. Here comes our leader. It's Mikhail Muller. The gap after all the pit stops over Mara Engel was 2.778, so a fairly healthy lead. Engel ahead of Christopher Mies by about 3.6 seconds. So the 1, 2, 3 fairly spaced out at the moment. And then Maxi Buch, who is honing in on Christopher Mies. And Maxi Buch is second in the championship. Christopher Mies is first, so he would dearly love to get past the Monteplas by Land Audi.
Thomas Preining there was really struggling with some oversteer, and it looked like there was some serious vibrations on the car as well as he came down the waterfall and hopped onto the brakes going into turn 13. So I do wonder if maybe there's a little bit going on with the rear of that car. Hopefully nothing too major. Certainly his speed hasn't diminished too much. Struggles a bit under braking going into turn 1 as well. Meanwhile, Maxi Buch closing in on Chris Mies. These are a pair that have had a fight or 7 at various points over the years. Great to see them. Two drivers very much married to their manufacturers in Audi and Mercedes respectively, and that is part of the joy of the ADAC GT Masters. We get so many of these factory drivers, these hired guns as it were, and every single weekend we do get this this excitement of seeing these factory drivers on circuit.
Brilliant stuff. Great driving, I have to say, that between Christopher Mies, Maxi Buch and myself, we have won one GT Masters Championship between us. So there is Maxi Buch continuing to track the Monteplas by Land Audi, and I have to say that Mercedes is looking very strong indeed. It wasn't the best start of the race, but it's solid now in P4. It's not necessarily wins that win championships. We say this so regularly, it's consistency, and that car is consistently finishing in the points at the moment, and will be a challenger, mark my word, until the end, until the very last race of the season, I expect. There you can see the prediction in the points. Mies and Feller will be 6 points ahead of Jaminet and Muller, as indeed Maxi Buch and Marciello will be tied with Jaminet and Muller if the race finishes now. So there's an incentive for Buch to make progress if ever I saw one.
Although Thomas Preining, I think, is trying to be the spoiler in that particular situation. Almost managed to get himself through at the inside of turn 1, realised he didn't have enough car alongside him and had to yield to Maximilian Buch. But Thomas Preining, who has had quite the rise through the Porsche ranks over the last few years, has become a very handy gun among the Porsche factory roster, and one of their young stars for the future. Of course, driving the car entered by Timo Bernhard's team, and that's certainly one of Porsche's greatest GT drivers right there.
So Thomas Preining has had an 8th place as his best finish of the year so far. So if the race finished now, he would probably be happy, but not as happy as if he could get past Maxi Buch or indeed onto the podium. Christopher Mies is the driver who's running in 3rd place, and he has won 4 times here at the Sachsenring, so he really does know his way around here. A good, solid driver, and it's going to be hard work for Maxi Buch to wrestle that final podium position away from him. Look in the background, Dries Van Tor, a driver who has been stealing the headlines all year long, currently in 6th place and closing in. Simona Di Silvestro still holding on to that 7th place, and she is looking good for her best result of the year so far as well.
Seeing there the graphic for the race laps for Wales and Africa, the BWT collaboration, I think that might just cross the 8,000 lap marker before the end of this race. If not this race, then very early in tomorrow's 60-minute encounter, which is great to see another milestone on that project as well.
Such good stuff. Changing the world sip by sip, as they say, and we love it that the ADAC very much getting behind that initiative and being very responsible in the way they conduct themselves at race events. So we are entering the final quarter of the race as we look at the 71 car. It was Max Paul, it's now Marco Mapelli still in the battles, this time going wheel to wheel with Joel Eriksson, and it's good to see Joel Eriksson back in that car. Dylan Pereira is the driver who is alongside him, of course, and started off in the seat of the Porsche. So we look back towards the cars at the front. And
every time I see Thomas Preining under braking into turn one, I do wince just a little bit, as I think you might have just heard. He is so committed into turn one. He really gets that car rotating under braking. And as I'm sure a great many of you have maybe tried something similar on a sim test, it often has a small margin for error. But Thomas Preining riding on that edge with gusto, trying to find a way around Maximilian Buch.
There's not much that Thomas Preining doesn't know about a Porsche. He is Porsche through and through, and he is driving that to perfection here this afternoon. Really good stuff from Thomas Preining. He is looking to improve on his best of P8 so far this season, as we've mentioned already. So that 5th place is a really good spot to be in. So here we come again, looking at the battle. Christopher Mies, Maxi Buch, Thomas Preining and Dries Vanthoor all battling it out for what is effectively 4th place in this race. It is the closest battle on the track, and Maxi Buch, by my reckoning, is still looking like a likely challenger to Christopher Mies within the next 14.5 minutes plus 1 lap.
Absolutely, and then you've got Charles Wirt just there, kind of behind, lurking, spectating.
Dries Vanthoor, who's taken over from Charles Wirt.
Sorry, yes. My apologies, yes. So Dries did take that car over from Charles Wirt, who's the son, of course, of one of the co-founders of the team. A team is kind of a Belgian supergroup of GT racing drivers of the 2000s, with the likes of Vincent Vos also involved behind the scenes. And great to see that team of Charles Wirt and Dries Vanthoor racing with us this weekend. And I think Dries just maybe struggling to keep on the pace with these 3 ahead of him, though, at the moment, as we see some side-by-side further back. That's the 82 GRT car, yeah, so just getting past Mattia Drudi by the looks of it.
Yes,
defending from Mattia Drudi, I think, maybe.
Yes, defending indeed. So Tim Zimmerman, who's taken over from Hugo Sasser, and Tim Zimmerman is making good use of that car, and Mattia Drudi, who took over from Ilya Earhart. Behind them, that's got to be Christopher Haase and Patrick Niederhauser, the 2019 ADAC GT Masters champion. So the 4 of them glued together on the track as well.
What a cast of names for a battle for 19th.
Yes, I mean, when we started this season, we were looking at the driver lineup, and there were probably 10 different drivers at least who were absolute, you'd say, almost favourites for the championship. So it was always going to be that somebody big was going to end up towards the back of the field, and it does change from weekend to weekend. It's the driver combination that is the most consistent throughout that is going to win this championship, and Mikhail Muller and Matteo Jaminet are very much being consistent here this weekend. So here we go again. This is the battle of the 19th place that we are witnessing. Tim Zimmerman with Mattia Drudi looking to the inside. He slams the door in his face, says, "No, you're not coming through." Christopher Haase says, "Can I have some, please?" Patrick Niederhauser says, "Why don't you all get together and let me through?" That was a very late call to go defensive into the first corner. I don't think he could have done that 5 meters later. Very much lastminute.com on that one, as we see the man-filter-backed Audi. I always associate that colour scheme with Mercedes, but yes, it looks good on the Audi as well, doesn't it? It really does. Excellent. One of the factors here this year for 2021 is the GT Masters races have been moved to later in the race weekend programme, and one of the issues that we do have is fading light. You can see the sun is actually starting to go down, and during certain parts of the circuit, the drivers are going to have the sun very much in their eyes. So visibility does become very much an issue. You can see the drivers circulating with headlights on. This is the last event of the day here at the Sachsenring, and the drivers are giving us pure entertainment to finish the day off.
I mentioned earlier on that Dries van Tor might be struggling to match the pace of the three ahead of him. He clearly heard me and said no, and is right back behind Thomas Preining now. Preining, who went a bit wide at turn 1 a few moments ago, almost gave Dries van Tor an opening, but Dries wasn't quite close enough to make the move. And but this is a great sparring match between these 4 cars. It's going to come down to a solitary mistake, I think, before things really start to explode in this battle for 3rd position. But of course, 4 more consistent drivers you couldn't wish to have. So whether that mistake actually happens or not, it feels rather less likely than some others further back.
It really is a quality field, isn't it? We've got 10.5 laps. 10.5 minutes plus 1 lap. Oh, I'm going to get that right one there, I really am. Of this race. The sun is setting at the Sachsenring. Tyre degradation is going to become an issue in these last 10 minutes of the race, because this is a tyre eater, this circuit is, and any driver that has gone too hard too soon is going to be starting to feel the pinch about now. And if it's one of these cars here, Christopher Mies in 3rd, Maxi Buch in 4th, or Thomas Preining in 5th, or maybe in Dries van Tor in 6th, it's gonna be a really tough last 10 minutes, because anybody could jump through and steal the position away.
And if you want a practical indication of who has used the majority of their rubber, look no further than the exit of turn 1. If the car is squirrely out of turn 1, that means that they have pretty much reached the limits of their grip. And you do see, as the race wears on here at Sachsenring with these GT3 cars, towards the end of the race, you do start to see more and more of that fighting the car out of the first corner. They have great traction control systems and things of that ilk in the GT3 cars. They are designed to be just as friendly to pros as they are AMs, but that doesn't mean that they're not tricky to get the power down.
And the amount of marbles off the racing line also shows you how the tyres are wearing. There is a lot of rubber lying off the racing line as these tyres shed the rubber and they go around as they go past the penalty box on turn 2. We've seen that one used this afternoon, haven't we? Christopher Mies, by my reckoning, seems to have the measure of Maxi Buch at the moment. He probably won't thank me for saying that, because normally when I say something like that, it all changes. But it looks to me like Christopher Mies in the Motorsport by Land Audi is starting to pull away, and Maxi Buch is defending more and more from Thomas Preining, and the more he defends, the more that allows Christopher Mies to stretch his legs.
Here we see Jesse Krohn being chased not just by Marco Mappelli, who we ride on board with in the 71, but also Jules Gounon, of course, in the 13 Zach Speed Mercedes. Great trio of drivers once again. They're all closing in slightly lap by lap on Simona Di Silvestro ahead. However, Simona's doing an absolutely brilliant job of holding on to that 7th place, maintaining the advantage. But we'll see whether or not that becomes another 4-car battle, as if we're lacking those out there on circuit.
So the light continues to fade. We have 7 3/4 minutes plus 1 lap of this race remaining, and the Zach Speed Mercedes looks to the side of Jesse Krohn. He's trying to make that BMW as wide as he possibly can, and not a lot he can do there. It felt like he was a bit of a sitting duck, but now it's absolute horsepower. The Schubert Motorsport BMW out accelerating Jules Gounon, and the 71 car saying, I'll have some of that, up through the middle. Didn't quite make it stick. That's Marco Mappelli. You've got to admire his opportunism there, trying to get stuck in. He almost got both.
Jesse Krohn there, I think, really got quite lucky there, because I think he has reached the limits of those rear tyres. Just seeing how he came out of turn 13, I do think that maybe he's struggling for grip. But there you see it again, 3 wide into turn 1. Mappelli tried to go through the middle, and it only resulted in Jesse Krohn saying, okay, fine, I'll have my position a little bit longer, thank you.
That is opportunistic move of the season, in my humble opinion. Absolutely brilliant stuff from Marco Mappelli. He picks up the slipstream as they head along towards turn 1, almost gets into the back of Jesse Krohn, and then under braking almost makes him stick. That could have been so impressive.
There's a reason that of the Lamborghini Squadra Corsa factory drivers, Mapelli always seems to be the one who's drafted into a vacant seat when one becomes available. And that's because you can plug him into a Huracan GT3 anywhere in the world, and he will be a maestro from the get-go. And we're seeing it again here in the ADAC GT Masters. So nearly got Krone as well as Jules Gounon, but still a cracking move, as you rightly say.
Yes, the 33-year-old Italian has only ever won once in GT Masters. That was at Zandvoort back in 2018. And I don't think he's done a full season, so he very much guests quite often, but I'd love to see him do a full season in GT Masters. And especially in a Lamborghini, as you say, he knows them inside out, and he is a pure entertainer. And with moves like that, well, Jesse Krohn would prefer if he didn't, I expect. Here comes Mikhail Muller leading the way down the waterfall. I just reckon that that'll leave your stomach somewhere in the top of your head. That really is a very steep drop, and I think he's got to take. It takes a bit of courage to come steaming down there. So Jesse Krohn has dropped back. So Jules Gounon is making progress as well. So Gounon has found a route past Jesse Krohn.
Krohn losing 2 spots at the once there because Mapelli was behind him as well just a few moments ago, wasn't he? So Jesse Krohn in the Schmidt Motorsport BMW seems to be really struggling, has now dropped off the back of both of them completely. Hopefully you get a replay of that move from Jules Gounon.
So out of the corner they come onto the pit straight once more, and Jules Gounon will now be looking to respond. Jesse Krohn, you wonder whether his tyres have finally cried enough. He's down in 10th place. Of course, Nick Yellowly did a good job hustling that car forwards from their 14th place grid position from where they qualified. But you can take so much out earlier on in the race. And the BMW M6, there's life in the old dog yet. And it's very much in its swan song in GT3 racing. Is still holding its own, and a 10th place at the Sachsenring is no mean feat. We're looking at a replay, and that is Christopher Haase doing a little bit of rallycross, keeping it, pointing in the right direction. That's all that matters. He didn't actually even lose any places, so kudos to Christopher Haase, but now Patrick Niederhauser wants a bit of that.
Yes, unfortunately for him, the GT3 version of the R8, unlike the road car, isn't four-wheel drive. Things would be a bit easier for him if it were, but that's against the regulations.
You don't say.
You see, Drudy's still probably quite frustrated at this point behind Zimmerman. He's been fighting this good fight for, well, the entirety of his stint behind the wheel. He's going to be hoping for a better qualifying tomorrow, no doubt, to try and get further up the order and not end up in these log jams further back. We know that Mattia Drudy is capable of being right up there at the front, but unfortunately down in 20th place, and it is so difficult to make a move stick here. As you've seen so often when an overtake happens, there's often the opportunity for the other car to just go, okay, I'll take that position right back. It's good for that kind of thing, the Sachsenring.
And of course, this battle you're looking at here isn't even for a points finish. This one is, though, the number 71 car, Marco Mapelli, again on Jesse Krohn, and makes, well, that is what we saw. We saw him drop, and that is exactly why he dropped. So Mapelli came through, and Jules Gounon grabbed hold of his shirt tails and came steaming through as well and stole that position away.
Yeah, Mapelli got a better run off of turn 7. And managed to get to the apex of turn 8 before Jesse Krohn, and from there, unfortunately, the BMW driver had pretty much nowhere to go, and that's why he then lost a further position to Jules Gounon. And you see Krohn also being closed in as well by Ericsson and Marshall behind, so could yet fall out of the top dozen if he's not too careful.
Yes, Jesse Krohn really has dropped back very, very quickly, hasn't he? So Joel Ericsson can see that BMW is struggling and is closing in on him in a hurry. And Dennis Marshall as well. Marshall, a very useful pilot. We haven't spoken about him this afternoon. He took over from Kim Louis Schramm in the Rutronic Racing by Teke Audi, and look how quickly they are closing in. Also in the background is Erik Johansson. We haven't said anything about him. He has replaced Mick Wieshofer for the rest of the season in the MRS GT Porsche. Here comes our leader, Mikhail Muller. Last time across the timing beam, it was 2.7 seconds from Mauro Engel. So Engel is pegging back the lead a little bit, but there is a little over a minute plus 1 lap of this race remaining. My goodness, where has the last hour gone? I really don't know. There's first and second together.
Absolutely, we're about to start what will be the penultimate lap of the race then. And Mikhail Muller has been exemplary at the head of the order. So often when you're leading a race, it's actually quite a good sign if you then look back at the hotel room later and go, oh, I was barely on TV. That means that you had a nice controlled race at the front. Third place battle, though, getting a bit more airtime by dint of it being extremely close still. Christopher Mies has been doing a great job of holding them off all race long. Maxi Buk, of course, being the leading car in that charge. As we go on board for another replay, I think this is again Mapelli finding a way past Jesse Krohn a few moments ago. You just see a little bit of a tap there, unsettling the BMW. Maybe a little more of a tap as well. And between the contact and the seemingly very, very worn tyres, there wasn't much Krohn could do.
No, it does look like he's very much a sitting duck. Look at Christopher Mies weaving the wheel there. It's a replay of him maybe getting a little bit wide out there. He is in third place, and he's very much under pressure from Maxi Buk and Thomas Preining and Dries Vanthoor. Here comes our race leader. He's got about a lap and a quarter left of this race by my reckoning, and a very healthy lead too of about 2.5 seconds out of turn 14. He comes along the pit straight, and very shortly will commence his final lap of the race. Here comes Mauro Engel. So who is going to get the third step of the podium though? Christopher Mies hanging on by the skin of his teeth. Maxi Buk, Thomas Preining, Dries Vanthoor all lined up. It doesn't look as though they've got really enough to get past to steal that podium position away. A big gap back to Simona Di Silvestro, looking for her best result of the year so far, ahead of the very entertaining Marco Mapelli and Jules Gounon. And then there's Jesse Krohn falling back into the clutches of Ericsson, who is in 11th place. So it's the final lap of this race 9 of this 14 race season here at the Sachsenring. This is a last challenge from Thomas Preining, surely just trying to hassle Maxi Buk into a mistake, but Maxi Buk does not make mistakes very often, it has to be said. He holds on to that 4th place, but here comes our leader, Mikhail Muller, for the last time down the waterfall. He heads in towards turn 13, and very, very shortly he will be heading up towards 14, and he can breathe that big sigh of relief. Has the bad luck finally turned? Is the SSR Performance Porsche back on the championship trail? It most certainly is. Out of turn 14 he comes, is Mikhail Muller, who wins race 9 of the season, ahead of Mauro Engel. Christopher Mies holding on for the final podium position. The SSR Performance team breathe a massive sigh of relief. They are back on the championship trail, and they are going forwards.
There's Di Silvestro across the line in 7th place, then managed to keep that distance between herself and Marco Mapelli and Jules Gounon behind. Jesse Krohn just about holds on to the top 10 result as well. I imagine that felt more like ice skating than driving for the last little while, based on how the BMW looked from a rear grip perspective.
Brilliant stuff, entertaining as always. The winner, Mathieu Jaminet and Mikhail Muller in the SSR Performance Porsche, and they have been dialed in ever since they unloaded that car from the truck for free practice on Friday. That car has looked very, very strong. Mauro Engel and Lucas Stoltz very much in the championship chase, and they will have closed in on the championship leaders as well. I'm not even going to bother trying to do the maths myself as the fans release the coloured smoke. Oh, it's like being back at Zandvoort, just a different colour. I'm not going to try and do the maths myself because it's always wrong, but very shortly we hope to bring you the updated points championship. One thing I can guarantee, it will be very, very close. So here is your official classification for the first race of the weekend for the ADAC GT Masters. Mathieu Jaminet, Mikhail Muller, Lucas Stoltz, Mara Engel, Ricardo Feller, Christopher Mies. That's the top three, and those are the remaining places scrolling through on your screen. So, thoroughly entertaining stuff from the ADAC GT Masters, racing for the title of International German GT Champion. The League of Supersports Cars entertaining us from beginning to end, and that race had a little bit of everything. So a few cars that didn't make it to the finish, mainly courtesy of those incidents we saw early on, and the most significant one of all, Mirko Bortolotti, along with Albert Costa Balboa, and they will be coming back tomorrow and looking to undo some of the damage, but time is certainly running out for them in terms of the championship trail. And you can see the delight in the SSR Performance team pit. And it has been a long time. It was at the Red Bull Ring back in June, the last time that they enjoyed a podium finish, and that was with a win. Just 2 wins of the season up till today, and make that 3. It's Mikhail Muller and Mathieu Jaminet, the first drivers to make it 3 wins. Will they be the first team to successfully defend their championship? Look at that. How close is that championship? Just 6 points separating the first 3. Well, I mean, there's 6 drivers and 6 points separating them. So, I mean, that doesn't get any closer, does it?
Absolutely not. We're in for a thrilling conclusion to this weekend and to the season at large. As we see there, that's the classification for all the top 3, and there's the rest of it as well. England Stoltz, of course, 4th place on 112 as well, just 11 points back, and unfortunately for Bortolotti and Costa Balboa, they have now fallen 25 points back. Not an unclimbable mountain, but certainly one that's much steeper.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for the GRT Grasser team as well, because they've worked so hard on that car all throughout Friday, and now they're going to have to spend the evening trying to, well, certainly work on the engine quite a lot by the looks of it, based on how that car expired before Sunday.
When you look at the top 6 with 6 points ahead of them, and you consider that there's still 125 points available this season, you do realise that the last race at the Nürburgring could very easily, most probably, be the championship deciding race. This has a tendency in the GT Masters to go to the wire, and this year is not looking any different. Really incredibly close stuff. And Muller and Jaminet, you just feel as though, if nothing else, they're breathing a sigh of relief, because for the last couple of events, it's felt as though they couldn't do anything right, just getting caught up in other people's accidents, getting unnecessary penalties, but they are very much back on the championship trail. Maro Engel and Lucas Stoltz, that is a pairing in GT3 racing. They're like Morecambe and Wise, just not as funny. But I can't imagine ever seeing Engel and Stoltz with other partners, if that makes sense. They go together, they complement each other, and they have proven to be very potent in GT Masters. Here's their place. It's Ricardo Feller and Christopher Mies in the Audi R8 LMS GT3 from Monteplas by Land Motorsport. The Monteplas team willing that car to win the championship and getting that trip to Mallorca, don't you know. Lucas Stoltz and Maro Engel were second in the Mercedes-AMG GT3 for Team TopSport WRT, taking the win in the Porsche. It's Mathieu Jaminet and Mikhail Muller in the SSR Performance car. A utterly dominant display for those 2 drivers. Brilliant stuff here at the Sachsenring. So Mikhail Muller, another one of those drivers who knows Porsches through and through. He has won in the Carrera Cup, and he is a multi-winner and a champion in the GT Masters, and along with Mathieu Jaminet have proven to be a really potent combination. So we're just listening in as is way. I always,
yeah, it's
I break out in a sweat every time. Please don't swear. No, it's in German. That's all good. That's fine.
I think it's so interesting, though. We talked about Stolz and Engel, of course. They race for TopSport WRT. That's a team that came up through rallying, then did some national racing, including the Porsche Cup Germany, and they're now a factory-backed, AMG team. They're one of the affiliate teams, and that's such a massive ascendancy for TopSport. And of course, they're still doing brilliant things on the rally stage as well. Pontus Tiedemann won WRC2 with them last year. It's really amazing how diverse their racing campaigns are.
You know how strong they are. 2019, they came in for some guest rounds and were instantly there. And everyone was like, TopSport, TopSport, okay. Then last year were championship contenders. This year, championship contenders again. They are by no means out of the running, particularly as the next two circuits are very different animals to this one. Just because Mathieu Jaminet and Mikhail Muller have dominated this race doesn't mean they're going to do it again tomorrow, and certainly doesn't mean they're going to do it at the last two rounds of the season. So, presentations will be coming along shortly as we see our representatives getting ready to welcome the drivers onto the podium. And there are the machines of war, the Monteplas by Land Audi, the SSR Performance Porsche, the TopSport WRT Mercedes. They're all legendary names. It was Porsche from Mercedes from Audi, three different manufacturers on the podium. So Jaminet and Charvier and Maxi Bouc all making their way forward. So Charvier would have been the highest finishing junior driver. So we're just getting ready for our podium presentation. And we will bring you that very shortly indeed. And just waiting for the drivers to get up onto the podium under beautiful late summer, early autumn skies here at the Sachsenring. A track that is beautiful and picturesque out in the countryside and always produces great racing. Has done that today, as we've seen Mikhail Muller and Mathieu Jaminet dominate this race from the front and take the top step of the podium. We saw them try to take the battle to the SSR Performance team. Didn't manage that, but second place, not bad. And our championship leaders, they hold on to that championship lead, but only just. Christopher Mies and Ricardo Feller. A representative from SSR Performance onto the podium. And now we have the national anthem. So that's the serious bit. Trophy presentation next, and then it will be the celebration time. So we have another race tomorrow as we watch the trophy being presented by Lutz Hübner to our championship winners. So yeah, race 2 will be tomorrow. That'll be race 10 of the championship.
From there, I assure you they're not championship winners.
Race winners, okay.
We've got a long way to go from there, for that one.
Championship leaders, race winners, there we go. Race leaders, yes, okay. Kevin Kuska presented the trophies for second.
4-time Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah. And second place picking up their trophies, holding them high. And Peter Weidinger from ADAC Sachsen presenting the trophies for third place. Very nice trophies indeed. That would look nice on my mantelpiece, but hey ho, I don't think it's going to happen. Right, trophy for the winning team. And fist bumps all around. SSR Performance, who do such an incredible job. They're another team that came in 2019, did some test runs, and then just came out in 2020 and paralysed the opposition to win the championship.
Well, with 3 race wins so far, they suggest they're going to have half the team up on the podium before the end of the year if they keep going.
They would like that very much. There go the celebrations to conclude what has been a thoroughly entertaining race. So from here,